another documentary I just came across of yours is that is about Egypt, and that is also really well made documentary. So can you tell us about that documentary?
So, that particular documentary, yes. So it's called Kemet, A Journey Through the Black Land.
Yeah.
Kemet as in KMT, and the story is A Journey Through the Black Land. It's a 4-part documentary series about ancient Egypt, the Nile. What many people don't know, and this is the importance of history, see, and we were talking earlier about the Americans and how they document history.
Yeah.
See, there's no one that will tell you Egypt is an African civilization. There are very few historians that will tell you that. Mainstream, you don't see it in books, even though Egypt has always been in Africa.
Of course, it is even part of Africa.
Exactly. And also, let us remember what the Egyptians themselves said about where they were from. They called their land Kemet. Kemet, when you read their language, which is called the Medunetta, in their language, Kemet translates to land of black people. So I was one of the first people, and I'm sure maybe there are a few people who have done something, but I'm one of the first people, I believe, to ever go to Egypt and do a whole entire documentary series looking at Egypt from the point of view of an African. What the people said about it, and how Egypt and these Africans in Egypt influenced the world in terms of religion, in terms of culture, in terms of science, and also in terms of the modern education that we have today. So thank you. I mean, that is actually about my 7th documentary. In 2017, I moved away after Mona, actually. My experience was so bad making that movie selling that movie, just dealing with distributors that were crooked, stealing my criminals, that I just didn't want to make feature films anymore. And I was also starting to have children. My children were very young, but I was starting to have children. And I said, what is important for me is to leave these children a legacy of Africa. So I made my first documentary in Dahomey about the Dahomey kingdom that I talked about earlier. I made another documentary in ancient Mali about ancient Mali. Ancient Mali had one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever seen. It's where a man called Mansa Musa, who they say would have been the richest man to have ever lived. He was the king of Mali. So I made a documentary there. I made also another documentary about the Hausa people. Hausa and Fulani are the people that occupy northern Nigeria. They are actually come from the Afro-Asiatic language. In other words, their language is one of the languages that come from ancient Egypt, but also it's one of the languages that will call them Semitic. Today, if you say anything about Israel or about Jewish people, they call you anti-Semitic. But the reality is Semitic people are indigenous to East Africa and parts of West Africa. That's another story. Anyway, so I made a documentary about them. I then made a few other documentaries about some political figures in my country. And then Egypt is my Kemet, The Journey to the Black Land about Egypt. It's my most recent documentary.
Yep. I want to tell you something here. Since Egypt is such a fascinating thing for me, I really want to visit. So over the course of my podcasting career, I have talked to many people from Egypt also. So whenever I talk about them, what do you think about the pyramids? What do you think about the Sphinx? Often I get the answer like, we don't like that. It is just a piece of sand, we don't like that. I kept researching why the people of Egypt are thinking about the pyramids in just a piece of sand. Then I realized that those who made the pyramids, as you mentioned, the ancient African people, they all gone. They all replaced by the different people. So their ancestor, they didn't build the pyramid. So why they should proud of that pyramid, right?
In fact, you couldn't be more spot on with your answer. It's the perfect answer. It's what I was going to say. The truth is, as you said, they didn't build it. The people that currently occupy Egypt, and not just Egypt, but North Africa, are people that came in the 7th century AD after the Hijrah. This is after the Prophet Muhammad was died, and then there was you have Abu Bakr and various other people fighting for power. And then they eventually come and conquer all of North Africa by force. That is why all of North Africa is Arabic and predominantly Muslim. But if you go to all those countries in North Africa, if you go to the south, you will see African people. Go to the south of Tunisia. Go to the south of Morocco. Go to the south of Algeria. Go to the south of Egypt, which you see in my documentary. I even talk about it in part 3 and 4. Sorry, 2 and 3, actually. The further south you go, you see people darker than even this my thing. These are indigenous people to Egypt. So the people who are in the north, they don't have any regard for it. For 2 reasons. 1, they didn't build it. And 2, because it is anti-Islam. You see, in Islam, you don't go and build statues for yourself and show off yourself. So it is anti-Islamic. Plus also, you see, their education system is just as bad as the educational system we have in Africa or in West Africa, just as bad as the educational system that you find in Europe when it comes to history. They don't teach the accurate history. So you will see, if you go and tell one of those people that, hey, did you know the people that built this were African, Black African? They will probably be angry about it because they've been told by the Europeans that it wasn't them. Mm-hmm. But if you go back far enough in history, everybody, even the Greeks, Greeks were the people who came to study in Egypt. They tell you, Herodotus, all these people were telling you that we learned everything from these Africans in Egypt. It's only when slavery began, what they call the Aryan model, Aryan, the Aryan model of history, which is when you see, because if I enslave you, my friend, right? If I'm your slave master, and I want to keep you as a slave, I cannot allow you to think that you did anything, that your ancestors did anything good. That's why I can't allow you to be educated. Yeah. That's why I can't allow you to go to school and learn, be educated. This is what they did during the slavery time. So Napoleon is actually, if you go to the Sphinx is the great monument that you find in Giza. It's called Horem Akhet. What is called in the Horem Akhet is the real name, which is Heru on the horizon. The nose of it doesn't exist anymore. Why? The whole body is perfectly intact. Everything is intact except the nose. But it's also the problem that you find with a lot of monuments from ancient Egypt. When you see a statue, the nose is gone. Why is that? It's because the nose is the one way you can identify the true origin of someone. At least you can get an idea. You see, if you draw my face now, you remove my nose, I could easily be from India, I could be from England. Nose is the one thing, because you can see that my nose being wider, I am from somewhere close to the equator, which means I am close to dark skin or black. So Napoleon saw this. In fact, the person who accompanied him wrote about it. If you watch part 1 of my documentary, I explain exactly what the person wrote. Napoleon saw this and was so angry that the people that his country is enslaving are the authors of everything that they hold value. So he pointed a cannon at the nose and shot the nose off. But that is not taught in school.
Yeah. To know more about this, watch the full episode. The link in the description.